Speaker, can you take the roll?
Yes, Ms. Boucher.
Here.
Ms. Campbell.
I am here as well, Ms. Speaker.
Mr. Cotton is absent. Ms. Hastings.
Here.
Ms. Higgins.
Here.
Mr. Richards.
Here.
Ms. Robinson.
Here.
Ms. Walsh.
Here.
And I am here.
This is the first of a number of work sessions on the budget. We will be spending so much time together between this and the middle school. And we will get started with Superintendent Murphy and Mr. Dunn.
Well, we have scheduled for 5:30 to 7, so I want to get started right away. And so we have a presentation to you tonight. It's very much an overview because we recognize that we have new members to the board, and it's important to understand all the facets before we get into the details. We will also want you to look at a schedule. Jack's going to bring that up pretty quick. As to what topics we're going to discuss at each of our meetings, so you have a good understanding. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jack.
Okay, thank you. We'll try to get through this in about 30 minutes, maybe 45 for you, and then you can ask questions along the way. So this is in your Teams folder at Budget 2025. So tonight, we'll just discuss the important dates, review the budget goals, which align with your strategic plan. We'll just discuss the major funds and an overview of those funds. Talk enrollments, expenditures, revenues, the big drivers in this budget, tax rate history, any questions that you may have, and then we'll review the work session schedule and then show where the public information is, and then we'll end the presentation. So, okay. Important dates. So the budget that you are working on will go into effect July 1, 2024 and end June 30th, 2025. Next October, when you revisit your budget, it will look at the tax assessment year of April 1 to March 31st. So currently, right now, the city is in the current assessment year. So on March 31st, that will end. It will take them from April all the way to October to compile those assessments. And then they send us over a document called the MS1, which has the valuation. And that's how we work with them. And ultimately, it goes over to the Department of Revenue, and they finalize the rate. We don't do that. You don't do that. City doesn't do it. The Department of Revenue does, based on what we provide. Okay? Let you do the goals. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
So, we try to align the budget to be in sync with your strategic plan. And so as you go through the budget, you'll see when we have different topics that we talk about, they will be associated with priority areas. So if we're talking about anything around equity and diversity, you'll see that as a priority 1. I don't have to go through all of them, but 2 is curriculum instruction assessment, 3 being social emotional learning, 4 communication, 5 being safety.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Yeah. Obviously, 5 being facilities, and 6 being safety. So the things that are in the budget are associated with those topics as well, those priority areas, and the things that we will ask for will be associated with those. And again, in line with the strategic plan that we've been using as our sort of our roadmap. That doesn't mean that there may be things that come up that aren't necessarily part of that, because as you know, things change on a constant basis. So sometimes it's hard for us to predict what we might see and how that would be associated with one of those priorities.
So when we get to the schedule of meetings, a lot of that, you'll get more detail into each of these goals. Tonight, again, it's just a high-level overview. So the major funds that are in, that we manage in the budget, you have the general fund, which affects the tax rate, and you have the food service fund, the grants, and then this year we had split out, it used to be 1222 was special funds, which are kind of one-shot items, private grants and donations, and we had the federal and state grants all under the 1222. And we have split those out now. so that it's cleaner for Ellen to manage the grants rather than them all interspersed in there. She can manage them in two separate places because each have different requirements and funding. So mostly what we're going to talk about in here, you'll see the numbers for the first three, but mostly what we're talking about tonight is the general fund, okay? So the general fund that you passed in October was $106,231,128. The FY25 budget typo, we're proposing for expenditures is $107,810,169. So that is $1.5 million or 1.49% increase in expenditures. The food service fund goes up net about $20,000 at the moment, because there is a grant that's helping offset some expenses there. And then the grants, we will not know till April. So we level fund them every year, and then when they come in, we can issue contracts for those.
And just a comment, and we anticipate that most of the grants will be level funded. We won't see a significant increase in our allocations, especially in the large entitlements. When you think about Title I, II, 3, which is ELL, and 4, which is our innovative grant, and those entitlements. The place that we can't anticipate, as you know, are those competitive grants and we've been pretty active with those. We actually have got another call from Washington regarding one of the grants that we didn't get, one of the original ones, but asking us if we were interested in resubmitting our original proposal. So that was a pretty healthy grant in terms of helping us with mental health issues internal. So that would, whereas the grant we have right now that we work with NAMI and Riverbend is external, where we use our partners. This grant would help us internally with staffs, but we don't know that yet. So we'll bring you that information as soon as we get it.
Okay. And of the three major funds, the general fund represents 94% of the expenditures in the district. Now, the next slide I'm going to breaks down what percentage of the budget is salaries and benefits, contracted service, furniture and supplies, debt service, and dues, fees, and transfers. So the salaries are $82,743,899. So that's an increase of $2.2 million or 4.28%. You're going to see this highlighted again. On the benefits side, the benefits are up 8.27% or $1.6 million. Those increases, specifically $1 million in health. Remember, you had a 9.7% increase in your rate. If you were at the finance committee meeting or have had an opportunity to see those minutes or that meeting, we had your consultants and your health provider there talking about this, because this is the second largest line item in your budget, and we wanted to prepare you for these increases. I think overall it's good news, but we're not much different than anybody else as far as trends at the moment post the pandemic, but I think we're in a better place considering the provider we're in. We are hearing districts of 21% increase in their health care rates. So to come in at 9.7 is probably thankful. But again, $1 million for the health. We also, New Hampshire retirement goes up because salaries go up. And again, that rate is over 19% for teachers and over 13% for every dollar goes to New Hampshire retirement. The life insurance is up $12,000, disability up $6,000, dental is up $132,000. Again, from that meeting, usually we run between 7 and 8, and now we're running closer to $900,000. That is something that they're seeing as well across the various industries. We are self-funded, and there is no contributions by the employee for that. We use Delta Dental as the for plan support. And workers' comp's actually going down, $9,410. The next one, as you could tell by didn't get a chance to update it, but that one is up that one totals $16 million. The debt service has your new debt for Beaver Meadow and Concord High and the buses, so that's 6.1 million. And then your contingency dues, fees, and transfers, 2.5 million. That does include $1.5 million transfer to the Facilities and Renovation Trust Fund. So, again, the total expenditures, $107,810,169. We'll talk about enrollments. And we'll start off first with your current class size policy. I'll let you take that over.
Yeah,
Sorry.
You good?
Sorry.
This policy's held for quite a while in terms of average class size. And you'll see on the next slide when Jack brings it up that we work within those averages. And again, you never know. I hate to say that, but you try to anticipate and predict. We do every year. We do an annual review by NESDEC, who we give them data about all of our enrollment data. They do births to Concord mothers, whatever data they can gather. They also gather all the information about new building and construction, because for every new apartment or single family, that means X for child. As you know, that's dropped considerably down to less than one. So for new households. So. But we get an idea about what our enrollment is, and then you'll see tonight, not only will we show you the current enrollment, but the prediction for next year. We try to anticipate. Good example, last year, you reduced a position at Krista McAuliffe, because the numbers we had experienced a significant drop in the kindergarten numbers. Lo and behold, when all the kindergarten students arrived this year and throughout the summer, I needed to put a position back in place. Now, there's a contingency that you have for the superintendent, which allows me to, of course I keep you informed, but allows me to put a position in because I need to stay within those numbers as it relates to policy. And I think we do a pretty good job of doing that, and you'll see that. The high school numbers, just to give you a quick, remember, come March, I will be bringing you all the enrollment at the high school. That gives the high school staff a period of time to have all the students sign up for classes, so they'll know what the enrollment is in all the classes. So we'll have a better idea about what we may or may not need at the high school based on what the students select for courses. So, but you'll get that information in March. So just keep that in mind. This slide I thought was interesting. It shows a 10-year history of our enrollment in the district. I'm going to flip to that now. You can see that there's been a change in the enrollment over time. The place that we're seeing the greatest growth happens to be in preschool, and John has kept you pretty up to date on that over time, where we see those 3- and 4-year-olds needing support, participating in our preschool programs. And remember, three programs, one at Abbott Downing, one at a couple of programs at Beaver Meadow, and also at Millbrook School. So providing for 133 kids. Now, that's not every day of the week. Some are coming in just for speech and language and OT, PT. Others are there 4 days a week. It really depends on the individual education plan that's been developed by the team, along with the teachers and the parents to provide for those youngsters. But that's the place where we've seen the greatest growth. Everywhere else we've seen a decrease in enrollment. You can see the numbers in Deerfield have stayed fairly steady. Those are the numbers of students that we tuition to the high school from Deerfield. But we also know that Deerfield has a new program now of choice. And so we've been alerted that we anticipate 25 students coming from Deerfield next year. And we've been traditionally getting about between 40 and 50. So again, that number can always change, but we had a history of between 40 and 50 in each of the classes. We will be at 25 in the remainder of their class, which is around 49 kids. will go to Co-Brown.
25 of the incoming
Freshmen.
freshmen, not the total number of Deerfield
Right,
students.
right. The rest of the numbers stay the same. The students that are there now as sophomores, juniors, and seniors will stay. Those numbers won't change. But just be aware that we will see a decrease in Deerfield unless things change. And again, students, we saw a change within last month. So you don't know what happens over the summer. And, but right now, it looks like about 25 coming in as ninth graders, okay? So over 10 years, you can see, you know, an average 660 kids, you know, that's an average of about 60 kids a year. But it's spread all over all grades and all schools, so it's not like you can just eliminate total, you say, oh, I've lost those many students, I can just eliminate classes. You can't do that because it's spread out everywhere. It's not like 660 in one place or one grade level got, you know, loses the most students. So it's just a little bit of a history for you to see what's happening over the last 10 years.
Pretty significant, over 300 lost during the COVID,
Yeah.
the 2 COVID years.
We're beginning to see some of the students come back from that, students that may have been in VLAX or homeschooled. And some of them, we're finding, are kids with some, you know, medical complications, and parents and families didn't want the youngsters in school during the pandemic. So, you know, now that things have, although we still have COVID numbers, not to the degree that we had them, but parents are bringing the youngsters back to us. But it's slow. It's a slow process. Any other questions on that? Because that's a lot of information, but, you know, if there are and we get together next time, you can always.
Do you have numbers on special education teachers' caseloads? Did we have the low, medium, and high on those?
Right, we don't have a low, medium, high on that, but when John's going to do a presentation on the 14th on special ed, we like to think that will be the topic on the 14th.
Okay.
And John will have those numbers for you. But we don't have like a policy, like
We don't have a
the
policy,
class
that's what I mean.
size policy.
Maybe we should.
I think you know why, is because
They're off
you could be on your
Very.
caseload, but the child may be on your caseload, but may only need 3 hours of instruction a week, whereas somebody
Okay, I
else
see what you
needs 15 or 20. So one teacher may have 8 because they need a lot of extra time, but another teacher may have 15 because they don't need as much time. So it's hard to narrow it down, but I get your point.
I think my question would also go to if you've got 15, that's 15 IEP meetings you're doing. And so we have to include the meeting times into, not just their, with.
Not their
student time.
instructional time, sure. Go ahead, John.
Just quickly too, and that varies too, based on the need of the child and the number of
Right.
people at the meeting. It's hard to, like I said, some of that is depending, you're more students with more low incident disabilities, more severe disabilities. Those meetings are typically longer. There's specialists involved, there's doctors involved. Those are longer meetings.
And the 3-year evaluation.
Yeah, and the
too.
3 years
So those
evalu-
grade levels might be
Yeah.
smaller.
Yeah, so
caseloads.
there may be some caseloads, like as Kathleen said, 8 or 9 or 10. It's because they have longer meetings, longer involved IEPs, multiple pages, 40-page IEPs, things like that, where some caseloads may have a higher number of students, but they are a much smaller IEP, quicker meetings, not as many
Yeah.
people involved, things
Okay,
like that.
thank you.
We'll get you those numbers, though,
Great.
Brenda, at the next meeting. So the next sheet that I provided for you is what we think about projected enrollment for next year, based on what we see. We also used, I think you all saw this, it's posted on the website, but that's the NESDEC report. Every year we participate in that. It's actually a service as part of our membership to NESDEC. So they do this at no cost for us. And I think I explained to you the data that they gather in order to use this document. And so we use that, plus the long-range plan that the district did, the Davis.
Davis demographics.
Davis demographics, I knew it was Davis. And we use that to see if there's any patterns, any changes. So we go out each building and look at it, and using that policy on class size, try to determine where we'll be. So we've moved youngsters up, identified where, now there'll be some changes based on numbers and enrollment, where the principal can move somebody from one grade to another where there might be higher numbers. I'm watching a couple of places, just so you know, if you look at Beaver Meadow, in first grade with 39 youngsters, currently in kindergarten, I could look at that and have 2 classes, still be within the range, not one class of 19, one of 20 in first grade. So I'm watching that right now. Same at Millbrook, where you have, they had 7 sections in second grade at Millbrook. I can reduce that down so that I have 1 less section. So I am watching those numbers carefully, as they could be places that we can look at our budget.
What about 5th grade at Broken Ground?
Those numbers are pretty good, 20, 21?
Yeah, right
No,
now,
5th grade. You
Yeah.
could reduce one of those and.
yeah, Broken Ground, I already did that.
Oh,
I
okay.
reduced it, Jim. They had 1, 2, 3,
Was that a
4,
re-
5. They had 6 sections,
Mm-hmm.
and I reduced it to 5. But what I did was move, because the numbers were so small, I moved it over to 3rd grade because their numbers would have been greater. Do
Yeah.
you see what I did? Because look what's coming out of Millbrook.
Mm-hmm.
So coming out of Millbrook in 2nd grade was 108. So when I said, principals,
Is this the next slide? I
But
think
the,
this is the next
the
one.
point is, if you could reduce that 5th grade, they'd be at 21.5.
yeah.
Same as Beaver Meadow, actually, still lower than Beaver Meadow.
But then she'd have to add it in for the next year, because the incoming grade is 20 kids in each section, and so we would just have to add that teacher back.
Well, we do that.
We do that all year, every
Ooh.
year.
All right,
We move people from grade to grade.
yeah.
Just something to look
Yeah.
at.
Well, that's what I said. It is a moving target in a way with enrollment, but we keep an eye on it. I think one of the other things that is a very smart move is to have that contingency just in case things, numbers jump up. Unfortunately, as you know, contracts have to be delivered to teachers by April 15th. That's by law. So I have to make decisions around teachers' contracts by then. So these numbers and working with the principals is really important for this next month and 2 months.
So they have the B too. They have the alternative one.
Yeah,
mean
so
that.
if you, I actually put in 2 different proposals, because again, it's a moving target. So if you look at Beaver Meadow and I go to 2, then I would have a class of 20 and a class of 19. And same with over at Millbrook, if I reduce by 1 at 2nd grade level. Jim, I will keep an eye on that 5th grade at Broken Ground.
Thank you.
Okay. So as the superintendent mentioned, this is the contingency and what makes it up. That total amount is $368,307, and it's made up of 2 teachers, 1 instructional assistant, 1 program assistant, 1 tutor, and that's it.
Just know that on occasion, when John has used up all of his funds in the grants, he's got a smile on his face, because that does happen, the money goes so far. I have used it when we had a special, this year, we actually did that with occupational therapy, where we needed additional occupational therapy hours for youngsters based on their IEP. So there have been occasions when I've used this for special education. Usually it's adding like a 0.2. There was another one that I did that with speech and language. did I do that one? Well, over the past couple of years, those
Yeah,
things
couple
have
years.
cropped
Yeah,
up
come on.
where we all of a sudden have a caseload that really needs additional hours based on their IEP. So I have used this contingency for some special education.
Okay.
But I do want you to know that it's always for instruction and direct service to children. It's not to have another person that's not direct service to kids. I'll put it there that way. Okay, it's not another administrator, it's not, you know, it's all about direct service to youngsters.
Okay, move to middle school.
So we're, again, this is Runlet, and what we anticipate for next year, again, the sixth grade is based on what the numbers are that coming out of fifth grade. You can see how the numbers vary. I mean, you have, 20, 30, 31, 32 increase from grade to grade, but you just have to be ready for that. But the way the Runlet works, remember, it's not just individual teachers like it is in the elementary school. Now you're talking about a team, right? You're talking about 4 teachers who have a team. And so it's not as easy to just say, okay, we're gonna take one teacher out of that team. It just doesn't work as like that. I can do that. It's okay, Josh, you got me going.
Woke us all up.
Yeah. This is kind of boring, Josh, so that was good.
Woke everybody up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, you know that you just can't do that. You can do that a little bit at the high school because you can look at the numbers of enrollment, but at this where you have a team, where you have so many, you have a teacher teaching a subject, and by the way, they're certified in that subject. So, you can't just say to a teacher that's teaching English language arts, you're gonna teach math, because they don't have the certification, and then I'm out of compliance relative to certification. So it makes it a little bit more tricky at Runlet in terms of those numbers. But we do watch the total team numbers, because remember, at each grade at Runlet, we have 3 sections. So there's 3 sections of 6th grade, 3 sections of 7th, and 3 sections of 8th. And so we break that down. But again, they fall within that range that we have up on, that we had for class size.
Is sixth grade certification still considered elementary, so they're certified to teach all of it, or is it different?
It is.
So in sixth grade, that's not such a big deal.
But we're not, but,
I mean, the certification piece.
Yeah.
Because they're technically certified to teach all the subjects.
right, but you know what? We're not seeing that as much anymore. We're finding that the 6th grade teachers are content
They are
Yeah.
content certified.
certified.
Does
10
an
years
elementary
ago,
certification not go to sixth grade now? Oh, but they're not getting an elementary. I see what you're
yeah.
saying. Huh, okay.
So we don't have that as much flexibility. Now, there are occasions, Barb, that we would see a teacher might have a certification in English and social studies. Sometimes you'll see a math and science, which is awesome, because then you can use them in different ways. I've seen some middle schools that will do a two-person team, because they have an English social studies and a math science, and so they create a two-person team.
Yeah. That's happened a lot over the years.
Yeah, and I've seen that done, and especially if you do have a reduction in the numbers of students, you can do that, and that helps you with. Remember what Jack said, how our budget, and he'll show it again to you, is driven by personnel, right?
Yeah.
It's almost 80% of your budget. We're not talking about a lot of extra money in the budget. The 20% will justify, trust me, but you are driven by staff and benefits. So anyway, that's where we are at Runlet. Any questions on that, how they set that up? And of
The
course,
core and exploratory, are those students that come in just for those classes? It says 21 to 23, are those homeschool students that come in for,
oh no, that's 21 to 23 kids in each of those classes.
in each of those
That's
classes?
an average. So if you have an art
Okay.
class, it's anywhere between 21 and 23.
So those might not be
Technology class, right.
in the 3 groups.
We do
of each
have,
cluster.
just to answer that question, we do have students who come to our school and only for particular class, homeschoolers. We've been encouraging parents who have asked us about homeschool if they would like to access a program like we'll see at the high school. Perhaps they don't want to teach physics or chemistry or maybe some foreign language or world language. So you'll see we'll have students come in for single classes, and they do that also at Runlet, especially in the integrated arts.
Does that count at all towards state adequacy aid?
It does. It's for is it just high school? The adequacy for homeschoolers?
I don't know.
Yeah, it was, I think they've broadened it, Pam. It was just high school that you got reimbursement for, but I think that's broadened to middle school too. I contend that we have kids at the elementary schools, by the way, that are doing the same thing, but we're not getting reimbursed, so that money has not been expanded, but we do get some. It's not a lot, but hey, I figure every dollar counts. High school, I will bring you those numbers in March. Once the youngsters have finished signing up, I know that at the Current Technical Center, they've been out to all the schools. They've had open houses. Parents have visited our technical center. Kids have begun to explore what area they'd like to take at the technical center. So Ann will have a good sense of those numbers for you in March, as well as the high school. The kids are signing up, our students are signing up now for their classes, and we'll have a better picture for that for you.
Okay. And we'll give you a high-level view of the budget. So this is by function, which is again, the budget is created based on the 1999 financial manual from the state. So all this coding is done to integrate with our Department of Ed reporting that we have to do every year called the DOE 25. So this gives you it by function level, which can be somewhat challenging because you don't see that. I mean, we can break it out and you'll see it in the detail of the budget, regular ed and then salaries, all the objects underneath, salaries and benefits and so on. And then this is all the same numbers, but now at a different view: salaries, benefits, professional services. And as we said in our opening, about $1.5 million increase, 1.49% more than your current budget. Let me see if this is the one. So, I'm going to get into some details to show you how we made this all come together. This next slide is showing you what the raw number is on the left, the 1.49, and then revenue that we're proposing to use from your trust funds to offset one-shot expenses or mitigate the impact of benefits or placements. So if by using this, we're trying to manage the tax rate, as I mentioned in October, when you put all that money back, you put that money in savings, was to not cause the heart rates to start going nuts. As I tricked Jim earlier when I handed him a little Post-it note. So it was all about stability. So this shows you, that's the raw on the left. On the right is really what the net result is of that. So you're seeing $1 million decrease or 1.02% decrease, because now we're starting to relieve and put that money back to offset the taxes going forward. So, and I'll go into each of those details of why we did what we did, okay? So first, on the expenditure side, transfers in. So the only thing that we're doing for savings is the two E's there to the left, your Facilities and Renovation Trust Fund. We're putting $1.5 million in. Ideally, we should put $2.3 million in. But you put in a significant amount of money in October, so I'm trying to balance that.
Would
If you-
2.3 be the 5%
Yes.
of the budget of debt
Yes.
service?
Yes. So I tried to balance that. I'm figuring also if the savings come in higher than what I'm going to show you tonight, you could potentially do that then, okay?
You explain to them the rule that allows us to do the fund
Yeah.
balance.
Oh,
Are
you're
you saying
talking
you should
about the-
explain my question?
Yeah.
Oh, as far as the 1.5?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So-
why
Yep.
2.3 versus 1.5 and how that
Yeah.
is
5%,
arrived at,
yeah.
right.
So, in 2005, the board saw its debt going down, because the high school had been renovated in 96, and they knew in the next 5 to 10 years that project was gonna be paid off. And at the same time, they saw the elementary project going. So 2005, I think, is before all our time as far as being connected at this level. And what they did is they decided to freeze at that point. It was 5% of the budget, and they decided to say, similar to what you do at home when you manage your budget, right? Put X amount into savings, and that's what they did. They maintained that to put 5% away. So when your debt is below 5%, you're taking that differential and put it into a savings account that's earning interest that the board controls. When you're above it, which we're going to see in the next couple of years, we pull down from that account. So this way you don't have spikes, one, spikes in the tax rate, and two, it creates a fixed payment that everybody pays for, that if you lived in Concord during a time that there was no kind of new debt taken on, you may have gotten lucky. But then you move into Concord and something, HVAC, new school, and the taxes spike. And you see that in communities, oh, it's $500 increase that year. That fund is used to mitigate that. That's the purpose of it. Okay?
The other thing is that wasn't always the case, but there's state law now that allows school districts to look at the fund balance, and they can do what Jack just described, up to 5%. So that's, that's an advantage, because districts that face unanticipated issues, right, have that ability to have those trust funds to be able to access. I mean, just, think about the issues that you deal with around special education. You might have a student that is new to the district and is going to require a substantial money. Now, yes, we get some catastrophic aid, but we don't get 100% of that catastrophic aid, right? And we're lucky we get what they're supposed to give us. So this helps school districts to anticipate, to be prepared for those unanticipated events that could be crushing to a district. And the last thing you want to do is be in a budget with a deficit. That is not a pretty thing. And so they've allowed districts to have that fund balance up to 5%.
And the other thing is, because you have that ability and the autonomy to be able to create these funds and store this money, it does allow you to be able to run your budget on a thinner amount of retaining funds. So in this budget, you're going to see we're about 2.6%. Again, the law is 5 to be able to retain, but we try to keep that lower. So the taxpayers have more of that. You have trust funds. You have a problem, you go to your savings rather than the taxpayers being the savings. So that's why we try to balance those accounts, and that's what gives you that flexibility. And it has given you countless flexibility over the years to what you've been able to do. So the next line, the other expense is the vocational center capital reserve. So that is money that's collected from sending districts. It comes in and goes right out, because that's purpose is only for the CRTC to make improvements to programs there, okay? So that's, and the net effect on your, we just have to appropriate it and show it going out. So the net effect for you is 0. Okay, so that's the transfers in to the expendable trust funds, because we're just dealing with expenditures. Now we'll talk about revenues. So on the revenue side, we have the total revenue is up 1.1 million from with before taxes. On the local side, we're up 448,000. On the state side, which we'll expand on, down 1.9, and on the federal side, down 62,000. And on the transfers, they should actually be black. We're up 2.6 million, and you're going to see. You just saw a little bit of how we use that money. And we're anticipating an unassigned fund balance of 2.8, and then that is down from what the amount that you had in savings last year. But again, this is all part of that ability now to slowly let that money out to keep the tax rate and give it back. Okay, there's no need to hold on to it. So on the transfers out, which are money coming from the trust, everyone with the R is money we're using from the trust to offset some type of expense to try to balance this budget and expenses that we knew were coming, but also knew that the year after that, we may not be as high, or it gives us a little flexibility to try to work to mitigate it and maybe deal with some anomalies. So for example, the first one, the school buildings maintenance fund, we put an additional $165,000 in contracts as we try to transition this HVAC system to this summer, and some increases and try to work to negotiate new contracts. And we put an additional $350,000 into summer projects. There's some security things that are happening that I won't go into that detail here. And we want to make sure, in addition to the $350 we've budgeted, that $350 helps mitigate whatever the grant will not cover. Okay?
700 total?
700,000 total,
for
yep.
Summer projects.
Okay? So on the second one is instructional materials trust. So you'll hear more about that when Kim presents for the curriculum instruction assessment, but in that is social studies, math, and SEL. That totals $302,500. We're pulling that out of the instructional trust. Again, with that savings you were able to do in October, that fund is pretty healthy. That is the purpose of those funds, to pull it out to implement new curriculum for items. That's why we're pulling that out. And you'd still have a healthy reserve at the end of this. The health risk reserve, again, is used because you're self-funded on the dental, and it was created when you were self-funded health-wise. We're pulling that in to mitigate that 9.7% increase. I don't typically like doing it for operating items, but we're digging deeper into why the health ins and outs are running higher than they should be. One thing we're digging into is probably because we can't fill vacancies. We're budgeting for them, and they're high. So typically, historically, we've tried to run between $400,000 and $500,000 in ins and outs. And what that means is we've budgeted it, and then we always budget whatever the max plan is that every group is eligible for. But maybe we hire at a single plan, even though there's a family. But you might have a two-person that moves to a family. So that's the ins and outs. And right now in this current budget, it's $1.3 million. And to me, that's too high. So that's why I've increased the savings. But how do I get that down to more traditionally pre-pandemic of $400,000 to $500,000 should be more of that ins and outs, knowing that we have that fund. So we're trying to work to see, do we need to change how we're budgeting? Or is it just going to come back when the labor normalizes? If we hope it normalizes anyway. Okay. So nothing from the energy risk reserve. We talked about the facilities and the VOC. And then for the special education trust fund, we're pulling $350 to offset out of district placement costs. So we have some particular high ones that we know will be sunsetting, and felt that was appropriate to pull that out. Okay. And then for technology, you have a technology innovation trust fund that you put money away in, and we knew the high school, which is the biggie, we are replacing Chromebooks in the 9th grade this year, teacher laptops, and they have gotten a lot of the hand-me-downs from the elementary and Runlet. So they have the short throw projectors. They got a variety of things. That's to be used to begin that replacement. We think, the building is probably too big to do it all in one shot. That's one. 2, do we even have the staff to do it? And 3, what specifically will that be? Is it going to be a combination of projectors, TVs like we have at the elementary? So we're working through that. So combined, we have $472,000 budgeted. In addition, $900,000. So almost over $1.3 million just for the high school. And then we did all the servers this year, so that's done. The big thing, and there's another one where we try to maintain like $600,000 in there. I think I've talked to the board about that. It's probably not enough. We knew in 2012 with the elementary schools, when that came on and we went to one-to-one, it's an expensive proposition because every kid has a device. And we were managing over, between staff and students and servers, over 7,000 devices. So it's a lot, but this is not the year to start adjusting that, okay? So that's 2.6 million coming out of there. So what does it all mean, bottom line? So on the local taxes, this year, you're raising 69,218,000. This year, we proposed that it increase to 71,000, 2.5 million. That'd be a 3.66% increase in the amount, but the tax rate would go from 1361 to 1401, or 40 cents. A 2.94% increase in the local rate. On the state side, it would go from 6.9 million. They're raising an additional 107,000, all from the same people, by the way, in case you didn't realize. I'm sure you all get tax bill and see that second one. We can't control it. We can't do anything about it. Remember, they look good this year at a 1.27 increase. They look terrible this current year with a 29% increase. So the little stuff they did there. So we're going to go from $1.57 we see to $1.59, 2 cents or $1.27. The net result is go from $15.18 to $15.60, or 42-cent increase, a 2.77% net increase, which would result on a $300,000 home of about $126 for the year. Okay?
Is that 106 total or
126.
additionally
Additional, yeah.
to what people are
To
already paying?
what people pay now, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm making some assumptions that there'll be about a $14 million increase to the valuation, which right now is $4.4 billion. City doesn't have to pass their budget till June, so they're not gonna be really knee-deep into the weeds. But as I drive around town and think about historically what we've done, and we show some of that, there'll probably be some properties that are coming online. And we do budget fairly conservatively. We try, and we only try to think about real growth. Real growth are properties that are coming online that'll spread it out
Things
among
out,
them. You know, welcome to the tax rate, and they take care of it and everything else stays. I try not to factor in market because you're just taking the same people. So instead of a 300,000, now it's 307,000. It's going up because your house went up.
Yeah.
So we're conservative with that. And you're going to see a tax rate history in a few minutes, so you can see, and that's very telling. Okay, so that's what this budget initially proposed will impact. Okay. Now we're going to go to the drivers, and this is simple. It's a very simple slide. Okay, this is the increases by bargaining group. We show you who's currently negotiating, which is 3. And next year we have 5, and you have 9 bargaining units, okay? Again, that's representing 4.28% of your increase, or 2.2 million. For every 706,000 is 1% on the tax rate. So you're at 3% just on salaries, just to give you context, okay? The other piece is a reduction in state revenue. So we're seeing a reduction in adequacy of 1.8 million. It's targeted in this extraordinary needs grant, that portion. So and you're gonna see this slide, so that is impacting 1.8 in revenue, 2.2 in expenditures, and then next, 1.6 in benefits. Health, dental, I highlight. Obviously, there's a couple other little ones that add up. New Hampshire retirement, because all the salaries go up. But when you take those 3 items, that's 5.7 million before we started doing anything.
Correct
That's
me,
where it's
though,
at.
Your first sheet said the 2.2, the salaries and benefits included proposed positions.
It has in there a cut and an add, and it's a net of 43,000 to the good.
Okay, thank you.
You'll see that next Monday, yes. So what's not in there, you'll see Monday, okay?
Okay.
But That's what we had to work with when we compiled everything. So now we'll go to some tax rate history. This will be in your budget book. I put it in each year, went through and updated it. So your current, right now, this is the city rate for current year, 951. The current local tax rate, the current
Local education.
local education tax, yes, thank you.
Is that swept?
The state, nope, they're swept right, yeah, swept
Okay.
right there. It's for a total of 1518, okay? There's the county, there's the grand total. Here's where it gets fun. When you go over, the local education portion makes up 50.67 of the tax rate. The state makes up 5.85% of the tax rate. And then combined, it's 56.52%. Now I'm going to take you back to 1999.
Please do.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, let's party.
In 1999, you made up 35.88% of the local tax rate, and the state made up 22% of the local tax, of the state tax rate. It is now 17% lower, and the local is 15% higher.
Thanks, New Hampshire. 'Cause where
Okay.
else is it gonna come from, you know? Yeah. Thank you.
Ne-
Like,
Okay, next slide. This shows you what the average has been for the last 10 years. The city has averaged 0.57. You have averaged 2.09. The state has averaged negative 2.89, but combined 1.21.
Combined all of those?
Joe, just the local and state
Okay.
education, yeah. Okay? So, it don't look too bad, it just is how it has downshifted.
yeah.
Other board considerations, just that, as we talked about salaries and benefits, we're negotiating current year, 5 next year. We do have capital improvements that we made, and as we said, we mitigated some of these improvements through your trust funds. We still don't know about what the city budget will look like, commercial and residential, real growth. Don't know, I know there's various legislation that we hear about, whether it's for state building aid, adequacy, as we know that is another hot topic at the moment. And then our federal grant allocations and any other grants that we might have, but we won't know about our entitlements until April. Okay? Any questions before I move on?
have
10
a
minutes
question.
past what I said, sorry.
Yeah.
But I'm within my hour and a half.
So, for clarity's sake,
Yeah.
without, like, just flat budgeting, taking into account all of the increases that you said, our current tax rate increase is we're at, what did you say, 2 point something or other?
2.94% on
2
the
point-
local, 1.27 on the state, for a
Okay.
combined of 2.77.
Okay. What was our increase last year? Like, we moved a ton of stuff to keep it low.
1.42, I believe, for the local, and then it was 29% for the state.
Okay.
I can go right back to my new trustee does the tax thing. Yeah, we went from $1.21 to $1.57,
Okay.
and then went, oh yeah, sorry, right here, 29.75%, and you were 1.42,
Okay.
right? Right there. And then you were 7.7 before, but the state went down 27%.
Right. So I guess my question is, that's baseline. This is all if we don't add a single thing to the budget moving forward,
Or
correct?
cut something else. I mean,
Okay.
you know, the other increases that are under those benefits, like we said, are whatever's been collectively bargained for CBA, New Hampshire
Right.
retirement.
Right.
But other than that, well, you're gonna see it in the budget, pretty much increases.
Okay.
You'll see a little bit in contracted services with some of the contracts go up, but I offset that with incoming money.
Right.
You do have new debt service, that's probably the biggest thing, but when that's financed over 20 years,
It's-
I've always been not concerned about that.
Yeah.
It's the operating.
Yeah.
That's where it's at.
So I think what I'm getting at
Yeah.
is over the next month and a half,
Yeah.
we're going to be sitting in meetings all together twice a week.
Yep.
Discussing, like, this is only my second time around, so I'm just trying to clarify for myself.
Sure.
We're going to be getting presentations from every single department about the things that they would like to have or are necessary to have. I'm just, like, I'm just trying to
I
keep
think
things.
to clarify, the recommendations for the most part of what the superintendent recommends the departments should get are
They're in
included
there.
in this budget.
Okay,
So it's not that we're gonna get a list of
and like have to
John
make
wants 20
decisions.
positions
Right.
on top of the ones in here. He might want them, but the superintendent
We-
isn't currently
we will
recommending
have-
them.
There is a small number of positions that are not reflected in the budget that we want to have discussions with you about. I mean, you know that we've had long discussions around the math coaches. We have a position that we have to deal with at the middle school with the social worker that's been grant funded. So there are a couple of positions, not a lot. I mean, most of it is what Pam just described is in the budget.
Yeah, and the Esser Cliff was really something that we were dealing with.
The Esser Cliff
last
is
year.
pretty much, we've managed that. I think
Right.
Ellen's with us. Yay, Ellen. But it's done, you know, for the most part. We've done a great job at expending all of our funds. We're not returning any money, a single dime. We've used it. You know, frankly, we could have used more. I mean, we struggled with some positions, but then again, with these positions, we haven't been able to fill.
Right.
I mean, you know, how passionate you were about the tutors to help some of our youngsters. We couldn't find them. We couldn't even, you know, we were out. We did, I think
Yeah, I
somebody
remember
found
you telling
a
us.
couple of retired teachers, which was really awesome. You know, but it's been a challenge. But most of it is in the budget, with the exception of some things that we'll bring up during each of their presentations.
Okay, and what I'm getting at is, like, I know surrounding towns are dealing with like 6% increases or higher because their healthcare costs are incredible.
Yep.
Their special education costs are incredible. I would like to see us, and transportation, right? Because that's not even included in adequacy. That's just like, guess what? You got to figure it out on your own. So I'm just curious as to, like, instead of like going through this process of like we're having meetings and we're having long conversations and it gets down to the end and we're like, oh crap, we have to make a decision. Could we instead say, like, what increase do we as a board feel is sufficient and like something that we could feel confident in, and say, make it work?
You kind of did that last year, if you recall. Remember?
Yeah,
You
we
said-
did, yeah.
You said to us, even through all the meetings, and we got to the end, right? And you said to us, okay, this is where we feel we can handle it. And you set a level. You all voted to do that, and we had to figure out how to get there. And we went back and we looked at our entitlements. We looked at how we might use those in a different way. And we did it, right?
Yeah. I guess I'm just saying, like, why can't we do that first?
If you do that first, I mean, certainly that's something that we, as a team, they're all pretty much sitting around the table, will come back together and determine what we can include. And we can still make some recommendations around things that we would cut. So we can do that.
I mean, I'm not saying that it's a thing I want to do. I just wanted to ask the question, like, why do we wait until the very end to decide what we're comfortable with, instead of, as a board, being mindful and picking that percentage and just saying, we really don't want to go over this?
Yeah, I think, Sarah, you know, I guess we feel that, you know, feel obligated, I guess, to give you an idea of what we need to operate and what those issues are that arise in our district that need attention. So that's why I think you've always seen traditionally, this is what we want, and what we feel we need. It's not just want, it's need based on our student population. And presented it that way. Of course, that does put it on your shoulders as those tough decisions at what it is at the end of the 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Mr. Fabrizio?
Karen?
No, please, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say too, that part of this too is the transparency of what's in the budget too. For me personally and the department that I oversee, which is vast and huge. There's a lot
Oh yeah,
of money
I don't
and
want to
time
get
in
rid
it,
of those
so-
parts. It's super educational for all of us. I would
Yeah.
very much like to keep
And for
that.
people watching.
And for the people watching,
And
yeah,
that's part
like
of
the
it
whole
for-
city
that's
deserves
part
that.
of the why too. Sometimes I come in and I know that probably there's not a lot because of the drivers in there to do something different. But I like to present it and show the numbers and as Brenda said, what are our caseloads? Where do they vary?
Yeah.
Things like that. I want to be very open about that, to say that and talk to people.
Yeah, I know. You've been very transparent through all of the process. It's not an indictment of a process. It's just like, why do we do this like this?
Well, each one of the departments is going to want to do that. You know, what is
Yeah.
it that we, what are the things that drove that number in each of the department, whether it's Kim's
Okay.
or, technology or Matt's, that's what the presentations will do. I think people need to know what it is that we need in order to educate 4,000 youngsters.
Okay.
Ms. Mika?
What I remember from last year, and this is kind of working off of what Sarah is saying, it was my first year, and we had presentation, all great presentations, some in slightly different forms, right? Some longer than others, more in the weeds than others. And we still had a few more presentations to go before there was a little bit of pressure. I remember you saying, you guys really got to start thinking about a rate so that we can make, at least you were looking from us, kind of at least where we were headed. And I felt like, well, if I haven't seen all the presentations yet, how could I possibly send you in a certain direction? So maybe there's something we can do about timing. Like, I think it's fair to set our intentions clearly ahead of time. Like, we want to be extra
Within a
conservative
certain
this
window.
year. Or here's
Yeah.
our range this year, just so that we're because I felt last year like we hadn't gotten all the information before starting that conversation. So why not just start it
Now.
now? Yeah.
It really can work either way, honestly. I mean, if you give us a number, right, then we're going to have these debates upstairs, right, about the priorities. And that's important too. Not that we haven't had those debates already.
Right.
But
It's a constant conversation that I know
right,
that you're
and
having over the
but
course
so
of the
either
year.
way works, and we want to share that. We want to share with you. I kind of did a little bit tonight when I told you that I was looking at classroom sizes. I mean, we haven't confirmed that, but I'm thinking about that. And there are other areas that I'm going to suggest that we cut based on need. And based on, you represent the community. You are the community voice, right? And so you get it. You know what the community can tolerate. We do too, by the way. We don't have a paper bag over our head. We get it. But you certainly represent each of your districts, and so you understand what the impact of taxes are and the affordability of this of our education. So it goes both ways.
Mr. John, do you think you could bring up the schedule?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
a good
next.
idea.
And thanks for entertaining the conversation. I know, like, we do
have it
things
now.
a certain
It's
way
great.
because it's been time tested, but
Doesn't
you know
have to-
me. I just want to poke a bear.
We have attempted in the past to, I guess one of the questions is if folks want to look at this
Where is that? Is that
schedule
up there? Where is it?
and say, are there discussions that you want to have differently or earlier to sort of get to that or not,
One more.
There it is, yeah, okay.
we had it's sort of laid out by category, but do we want a session where we ask the superintendent to bring us all of her proposed additions and cuts and issues of controversy at the first session or the second session, and then we can move on to further discussion from there. Ms. Higgins?
The only issue I see with that is
plan.
we're gonna look at a bunch of additions and cuts with no reference as to why they're being
No
added.
context, yeah.
Every single meeting, yes, we wait till the very end, but by the end, we all are inside the heads and thought process of everyone presenting to us. The other piece that makes, this took me a couple of years to really wrap my head around, we're also doing all this and we don't know what the valuations are. We're waiting on a number from the city that doesn't come until the fall.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, you're like playing a game and the rules are in French and you don't speak French. So
Yeah.
you're doing the best you can, looking at everything you can, not really knowing what to do until those valuations come.
The ninth hour.
And sometimes
Yeah.
it's yay, and sometimes it's, you know, back to the drawing
Last 2
board.
years, we haven't gotten the valuations, even in the fall, before we
Right.
finalize.
Right, so yeah, but that adds another, so, no, it
Yeah.
makes sense, like, why can't we just hash out the numbers right away, but every number is a story, do you know what I mean? And-
Yeah, and especially when it comes to kiddos' needs.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
right.
we have legal obligations
Right.
that we have to be meeting. And so I think, I don't know, just sort of like been playing around in my head. I'm feeling the pinch of property taxes. I know everyone around this table has, and we've heard from the community quite often, like, I don't want to put my house up for sale. I want to stay in this community, primarily because of the education our kiddos get here. This is a desirable district. I would like to be able to keep everybody here of different socioeconomic experiences. So I'm just trying to like find those sweet spots where we can find ease and just like find, I don't know, creative ways of making things
You
better
actually
for
get
everyone.
that on the
Miss-
first session. You really do. I mean, 80% of it is in salaries and benefits.
Oh, yeah, there's not-
So
you can't do anything
When I come in on Monday, I'm coming in with what I'm proposing for positions and for cuts, as you described, Pam, and
all
you
of
can
that
say,
is in
hey,
the budget now."
we're not doing that. What, you crazy? Or whatever you want to say, but I'm going to bring that in based on all of our discussion here.
Okay.
And trust me, we still don't have 100% agreement upstairs. We still argue over these points.
I bet.
Can we do this? Is it manageable? Is it feasible? Not manageable, feasible for the community. So
Ms. Hastings, Ms. Hastings had her hand up, and then Ms. Higgins.
I wonder if we could do maybe a combination of the two. As you said, you're bringing those budget requests and budget cuts to us. If each department could do that and sort of list them out for us so that we can see what you're needing, but also what you're reducing at the time, and then we can look at it afterwards, after we have the whole stories from everyone, and say, okay, well, this is what they were talking about here, but we really think they need that, or, let's see if we can get by another year without this, kind of thing. We know what you're looking for, because it does sometimes, from someone without a financial background, seem a little obscure and hard to really understand
Brenda,
what
my
you're looking
only
for.
comment is that we did some of that upstairs already, and you've never seen it. I mean, that's our
So, I
job,
guess, yeah,
is
just
to say,
to show
hey,
it to us.
not this year.
Right.
We can look at that next year. We've done some of that pairing upstairs already.
So,
And I think that's helpful context,
Ms.
right?
Robinson,
Oh,
Ms.
I'm so
Higgins had her
sorry.
hand up,
This
sorry.
goes right along with
You know,
what Brenda
good
just said. One year, it was Chris Rath, so it was a long time ago, and we had, I don't remember the details of what was going on with the budget that year, but it had made a big jump, like a few $1,000,000 jump. And we had a budget workshop meeting, you might remember this, I don't know, and we had to, okay, if we had to cut $1 million from the budget, what would we cut? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And it was so it sort of mitigated waiting until, like, we did it right away. If we had to, where could we make cuts that would be the least painful? And it was sort of a compromise, a little bit of going all the way, it was just like, if we had to, where could we? And as I recall, we had to make some of the cuts and we didn't have to make others. But it was a good way of like, all right, we have it. Now, if we had to lop off $5 million, how would we do that and feel good about our jobs as board members? It was
I do remember that. Language,
Yeah.
music.
And I
It was not always really
Kind of a
popular.
running list of where could we cut.
yes, yeah.
we
And so if you
had
have
to.
that mindset as you're going along, it's not like a blank slate when we start the conversation.
and
That's
it's
good advice,
difficult
yeah.
when you put
Yeah.
things off. When you put things off, it's difficult, right?
Right, yeah,
And
yeah.
so we've been caught up in a little bit of that, haven't we? When you think about some of the big projects that we need to do.
Yeah.
And we put them off, prior to 2017, and there was some things happening, and we had the pandemic, and more things got put off. Now we're at 2024 going into 25, and we still have those things back from, You know, Matthew, I'm looking at Matthew, he's shaking his head over there because he's often had to put off things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You know, and he comes into our offices with his needs, and we know he needs to do that, and yet we've somewhat handcuffed him by budget restrictions. So.
It all makes sense. I appreciate the
It does make
context.
sense what you're all saying. We want to do what you think is best, and but we also are always going to advocate for the needs of our kids.
Of course, I would expect
That's our
nothing
job.
less. Yeah. Thank you very much.
So let me just go to what Ms. Hastings talked about. So this is a slide from last year. This isn't anything to do with this year.
Yeah.
But what we're putting together, and I want to make sure this is what you want, because it's mentioned by department. So we're doing some of what we did last year. How does
This
it
is
align
last
with your
year's slide,
strategic?
right?
Yeah, last year. This is not
Okay.
this year. No,
this year.
I put it in there just in the event this question came up. That it says SP2, that correlates with curriculum instruction assessment. So that's the goal. There's where it was funded from the year before, what the status of it is, what's the FTE, where it's located, and the amount, and what's rationale. That's what you're going to see on Monday night. I think that's what you want again, but
Yep.
tell me if not.
No, that's
So
great.
it'll be, yep, you'll see it.
I do have a memory of seeing an initial version of this where we didn't see the stuff in red and we were like, well, wait, what are we taking out? So I want to see what we're adding, what we're taking
Yep,
out visually.
anything
So-
in red will be a reduction,
Yeah.
anything like would be an add. Yep,
And
okay.
we'll see this Monday?
Monday.
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 The other piece that's making budget tricky now is we got so used to ESSER fund stuff and how helpful it was. That it's like, oh, this is how it should be, all right, yay. And then suddenly it's like, wait a minute. And that's a lot of money.
Although we dealt with most of those in the last
Oh,
budget.
but I'm
So
saying
we're
it
not,
was- no,
yeah, yeah.
We are, but it was,
Yeah.
it contributed to how the budget process is
Yes.
altered by.
You
Yeah.
had 17
Yeah.
positions at associates, 17 paraprofessionals.
Yeah.
Those are all gone when the ESSA money ran out. I mean, we had to. Now, we had positions in the district, so folks could move from an ESSA position to one that was
Needed to be
either
filled.
IDEA or whatever, or general funds. So it wasn't like we had to lay off people, but because there were openings. And we have trouble finding ed associates, right? So that worked out for us. It worked in our favor, actually. But we cut other positions already. Ellen just left, she had class tonight. That's what we did this year, and so those positions, but there's still a couple that are hanging on that I'll bring to you on Monday night that I just need to talk to you about.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because this is about us together doing this. It's not about, I want to hear from you too, what you think is important.
One question for the board and the administration. So right now, we have our first 4 sessions, an open session, then transportation, food service, and technology. And then we have to take a preliminary vote on posting the budget at the next session. Would we and now I remember why we always end up with this, because that is it's only a half hour. So, saying we want to do that earlier, but probably not enough time. So never mind.
That's okay. I know where you're headed with it.
I was headed with, would we rather have food service and technology on the 21st and start open discussions than continue it on the 4th and the 6th, rather than doing that in a half hour? It's not a huge part, but technology is a pretty big part, and a half hour doesn't seem like enough
Yeah.
for that, for those 3. So
Didn't
maybe
that end up spilling over into another meeting?
So maybe we want to do
Yeah.
that on the 21st, so we have enough time for real discussion
Yeah, flip those.
on the 6th when we post the budget.
And put the 5th as an open switch the 5th and the 6th, so we have an open session.
Number 5 and number 6.
Yes, switch to 5 and 6. And, we can have a half hour open discussion before the board meeting.
That sounds good.
Does
We'll
that
do it right
work
now.
for the
We'll
administration?
do it right
Yeah,
now.
we'll do it right now.
And then we will post this up on our website, so, folks can join us, and if they so desire.
Usually, by the time we get to open session, there's a list of questions that we have asked answers for.
Yeah.
So that would be good to get those answers on the 4th, so that we can do that before we
One of the
vote
things
on a
I,
budget to post.
one of the things we've done is run a running list of questions. Do you remember? You would ask questions and I would try to give, we'd try to give you answers and then give it back to you so you had them. So we will continue to take your questions, do the homework, and then get back to you at the next meeting or as soon as we have the information.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Kara's got a
I
question.
I just have a quick question about thinking about, all the articles I'm seeing in the paper and the conversations that are being had around the middle school and potential confusion around when we're paying for things regarding the new middle school and when, is there room in this budget process to acknowledge how the new middle school, while years away, will impact this year's budget, just very clearly? Would we handle that at capital facilities and debt service? Just to make sure, because these are open to the public. I think
Yeah.
people might just generally have questions about how the middle school project all mixes in with this.
I think we can include it if that's what we would like to do on the debt service evening, is ask Mr. John to put that in there.
Will
Mr.
we have a
Richards?
good design number? Will we have a number?
No, we will not have a number, other than the one we have, the people.
So it'd be more of a hypothetical.
Yes.
But no money will be coming out of this budget.
Well, I think more when would debt service start and things like that, if you could.
We can do that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, if I can't do it on the 19th, then
We've got that half-hour open session now.
if I could do it, I'm trying to think if I can do it before the posting of the budget, since it doesn't affect the budget at the moment.
Right,
But,
and I think in a way, just acknowledging that it doesn't affect the budget is helpful for the public.
yeah,
Are we
In
paying
its own
the
way.
architects now, though?
yeah.
So
So
that
when
there
you're,
is some budgetary.
yeah, so under your motion, we're paying through money raised into your capital reserve, the Capital Facilities and Renovation Trust Fund. So similar to what we did 12, 15 years ago, we took money from there and then we did a reimbursement. We did what was called a bond anticipation note. I'm trying to run that out as far as I can, because when you're earning 4 or 5% on your money versus going and paying maybe 3, 4, 5% on borrowing money, I'd rather be able to use our money and then reimburse us. And I'm trying to hold out borrowing the money until we absolutely need to.
So while we're paying money out currently,
Mm-hmm.
we may not be adding to our debt because we're using our
That's correct.
savings.
Yep, yep. So right now, your debt is about 40 million, and if I'm right, if I remember right from the documents, you can borrow up to 7% of the valuation. We will be nowhere near that. Okay?
Mr. Richards?
Just for the people who are new, right? Because it was a little question that I had when I was in it, is that when we post a budget, that's not a budget. That's just our current snapshot at that point. We can change everything after that. So it's not something that we're locked into. It's kind of
It's to give people some directions
It's-
for when they come to
for them to
comment.
see. But, in actuality, you're gonna have a lot of this information on our website even before the post the budget, right? And we're gonna be able to look at what we're talking about ahead of time. So it's actually posted earlier, so you can go in and take a look at the whole budget, right in there. And anyone can do that.
Yeah,
And I encourage you to do that, because it's pretty big.
yeah.
And just a reminder too, even with the architectural fees, don't forget now, I know he's gonna use the trust fund to do that, and that's a good move. But just remember, that's reimbursable too. It's 40% reimbursable, so, that isn't the number that we see, because we know that at some point, we will be reimbursed for state aid,
Right.
state
And
building
I
aid.
think you guys are all making my point, which is that we're talking trust funds, we're talking reimbursement. It's complicated stuff.
It
And
is.
it's,
Yeah.
and it's in
It
the
is.
news right now, and so when you just point to a single number, it's hard to understand or justify that number. So what an opportunity for us, while we're already talking about the budget, to provide a snapshot of context.
Yep.
Because we're already talking about our trust funds, we're already talking about our debt service, I think it's an opportunity I don't want to miss, because I think people will be paying attention, because they have a lot of questions about this project.
I agree. And don't
a good
forget,
call. I agree.
you did talk about having a public Q&A. Do you remember that? We talked about that last meeting, I think last Monday night. And so I think that can also be reinforced during that time too.
Yep, 100%.
Because that's really, I mean, we're talking about money now. This is
Yeah.
money.
And I just don't, like, we're committed to each other for the next 6 weeks. I don't know where we're gonna fit in
13 meetings.
a Q&A. So unless we're gonna bump one of these for a
Like it or
specific
not.
Q&A, you know, we can
we've done-
weave
We
it
can
in.
use the time we're
Yeah.
already using together and
Yes.
just let the community know, we know you don't usually pay attention to these things,
Well,
but.
what we talked about on
Let's
Monday
make sure
was
they know that.
a Q&A, a middle school Q&A
With the committee.
with the committee.
No,
Right.
so we don't have a quorum.
Right.
So,
Right, yeah.
Sorry, so we moved the transportation, food service, to technology to the 21st?
yeah.
I'm sorry, I just realized I cannot be here. I could probably remote it in if we have somebody I could Zoom in, but I cannot
Can
be
we
here.
switch
I-
capital facilities and transportation so
Well,
that?
Well, no, he needs to be at.
That one he definitely needs to be at.
Yeah.
Do I?
Which one do you not want to be at?
No, yeah, I have to be in New Jersey.
No, that's totally fine.
That's probably why it was mapped out
That's
that
why it's
way.
mapped the other way.
Yeah, maybe we did that.
I did so that I could leave it, yeah, but
You can switch it.
Pam's right. I mean, a half hour, if you, and I'd like you to get that in before the,
Yeah.
unless you
before we
started
post it.
on the 4th and, well, I want you time to deliberate before you post.
I think superintendent, the department heads may have to cover these without Mr. Dunn and pray for their safety. Without him to protect them.
Hope they make it through.
I might be watching
Are you
remotely.
kidding me? I'm gonna have him right on.
I'm gonna get a drone.
I know, right?
Know it,
I'm gonna get a
Let
drone.
the man breathe.
if I don't drop it.
All right, we'll let it go at this right now?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
Fine. Oh, one other important note. So notice instead of Millbrook or high school, I put Beaver Meadow. I think that was a discussion.
Yes.
I think Josh, you can give me a thumbs up in that room. He was good to go.
All right.
I spoke with Kevin for our IT, and we can do it there. So if that
Great.
works on the 20th, which is a Wednesday at 6, we will post it as that.
Wonderful.
Okay? Other than that, we give you an open session after your public hearing, and then we hope for you to finalize one so that we can start to prepare contracts. Okay?
Sounds
So
like
may
a
everyone
plan.
make sure you mark the 27th on your calendar. Really need you, we need you here for all of them, but you know,
That's the biggie.
that's the big one.
So these are posted on the website. This presentation will be posted in the morning. And anybody's got questions? They're
There we
your
are.
favorite people, right there. Okay?
He
They
loves
can call
this
the school
slide.
district.
Yeah.
I love it so much, I'm gonna highlight it. How about that? So, but also if they contact us here at the district, we're more than willing to help them.
Yeah, notice his isn't up there.
Yeah, who is that? Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
That's it.
This we will post on or before Monday that has all the detail. I did put one detail into your Teams folder. This is a Word searchable document, so it allows people to search it. That's why I do it. I don't post the Excel because the Excel's not gonna make much sense. I put it into a nice little thing, and it has all your emails in it. I'll show you that Monday night, where people can click on your individual email. It automatically populates the subject. It says question about FY '25.
Oh, cool.
And there's a little question in the corner of the document. If you hit that, it hits a broad swath of people.
Great.
So, okay? And that's all I have, with 5 minutes to spare.
Heyo.
For
With me throwing a
Not your meeting.
curveball at
It's all
you.
you know, so, okay.
Does anyone have any other questions, discussions, Ms.
I
Hastings?
do. Monday night, we were talking about starting a scholarship fund for students going on large field trips, not your everyday field trips, but travel trips. And I have a check from Cleveland Waters and Bass, a local law firm here in Concord, as a contribution to that. And the Teachers Association will be taking it up on their meeting at the 13th to make a donation as well. So we have some funds already started, and I don't know how we do this so that teachers can access that and
So we'll have to develop a process as far as it dispersing, But incoming, we will set that up as a project in our 1229.
Okay,
I will have a conversation with Ellen.
okay.
But, and then we'll send an acknowledgement on your behalf
Yeah,
to
we'll
them,
do.
thanking them
Yes,
for that.
and we do thank
we
them
do
very
with all
much for
this.
that.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
that's
Yeah.
very generous.
And
So,
to our teachers.
is this within your gift policy so that we can take it, or do we need to bring this to the monthly board meeting to accept the gift?
I don't know what is a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think your policy's 10,000 or more. Otherwise,
Not
we-
that much.
Okay, just checking.
But they're not giving us
Way to put it.
We can get it there
Maybe we ought to set that as a goal for folks.
No,
Yeah.
if,
Can you get it to the board?
we really would encourage,
Yeah.
independent and individuals to contribute to this, you know, it adds up.
Yeah.
$10, $20 a person adds up, and suddenly you have that $800 to go to Washington DC, or the $700 to go to New York City for the weekend, and we can help out a lot of students that might not otherwise be able to do that.
Yeah, for some of those kids, it's their first trip out of state.
Yeah, out of Concord, some of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
So
Okay.
it's a great thing, and we thank them very much.
Way to kick it off.
Yeah, way to go. Good job.
Working on it.
Anyone have anything else? All right,
That was a great note to end it on.
then I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Richards, is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Boucher. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. We will see you all on Monday.